You can spend 10 weeks growing perfect vegetables, then lose their best flavor in the final 10 minutes by harvesting or storing them the wrong way. That sounds unfair, but it happens in summer gardens every day. A cucumber stays on the vine one day too long and becomes seedy. A basket of leafy greens sits in the sun while you finish watering and begins losing moisture before it reaches the kitchen. A fully colored tomato goes straight into the coldest part of the refrigerator, even though you plan to eat it tonight. A bunch of basil is treated like kale, and by the next day the leaves are dark and tired. The plant succeeded, but the final decisions did not protect the harvest. So imagine that we are walking into the garden together just after sunrise. The air is still cooler than it will be later, the soil has not begun radiating the day's heat, and an empty harvest basket is waiting beside a clean pair of scissors. Tomatoes are changing color, cucumbers are hiding behind broad leaves. Okra pods that looked small yesterday have stretched overnight. Basil is fragrant before we even touch it. The garden looks ready, but every crop has a different harvest stage and storage need. Before this basket is full, you will know which crops should be harvested while they are still young, which fruits can stay on the plant for more color and flavor, which vegetables need to be cooled quickly, and which popular herb should never be treated like an ordinary cold-loving leafy green. You will also have a 4-part system for deciding what to eat first: refrigerate, ripen at room temperature, preserve, or share. Use clean scissors, a shallow ventilated basket, and choose a shaded place for the harvest before you pick the first item. Produce begins losing moisture as soon as it leaves the plant, and a basket in direct sun keeps heating even though it is no longer attached to roots. Morning is often the best starting point because leaves and many fruits are cooler and better hydrated. But morning is not a magic rule that replaces judgment. A melon harvested at sunrise is still unripe if the plant has not finished developing it. An okra pod harvested at the perfect hour is still tough if it has already grown old. The clock can protect quality, but it cannot create maturity or reverse it. Do not automatically wash everything the moment it enters the basket. Produce should be rinsed under clean running water before eating or preparation, but extra surface moisture during storage can accelerate decay. The right choice depends on the crop and how soon you will use it. We will begin with the crops that rarely reward patience. These are the vegetables that tempt you to wait for a larger harvest, even though their best texture often arrives before their largest possible size. Zucchini, cucumber, okra, snap beans, and eggplant can all look impressive when oversized, but impressive is not always delicious. The first lesson of peak summer harvesting is simple. When the edible quality depends on youth, bigger can quietly become worse. Zucchini is one of the clearest examples of why the largest vegetable is not necessarily the best harvest. In warm weather, a fruit that seems perfectly sized in the evening can look dramatically larger the next morning. The exact harvest size depends on the variety, especially when comparing compact zucchini with longer summer squash, so do not depend on a single number. Look instead for a fruit that has reached a useful size while the skin is still tender, evenly colored, and easy to mark lightly with a fingernail. The stem should look fresh, and the fruit should feel firm, rather than swollen and coarse. A young to medium zucchini usually has softer flesh, smaller seeds, and a more pleasant balance between moisture and texture. An oversized fruit is not automatically wasted. It can still be grated for bread, added to soup, stuffed, or used after the mature seed area is removed. But it is no longer the same product you would choose for quick sautéing or fresh, delicate slices. This is where many gardeners wait one day too long because they are measuring success by pounds rather than by eating quality. Cut zucchini with a clean knife or pruners, leaving a short section of stem attached. Twisting can split the stem, damage the plant, or scrape nearby fruit. Support the squash with one hand while cutting with the other so it does not drop against the container rim. Place it gently in the basket instead of underneath corn, melons, or a pile of tomatoes. Once indoors, keep it dry and cool, and avoid washing it until you are ready to use it, unless there is a specific safety reason to clean it immediately. Check the plant frequently during hot, productive weather. Removing usable fruit before it becomes overmature also keeps the plant from investing more energy in developing large seeds. The next vegetable can stay beautifully green even after its texture has begun moving in the wrong direction. Cucumber maturity is especially confusing because the correct size changes with the type. A pickling cucumber may be ready while it is still short and compact. A slicing cucumber can grow longer. An Armenian cucumber may look very different from both. Your seed packet or plant label gives you the expected form, but the plant gives you the final answer. Look for even color, firm flesh, a fresh stem, and a shape typical of the variety. Many green cucumbers are best before the skin begins turning dull or yellow. A swollen blossom end, pronounced seeds, or a yellow cast often signals that the fruit has stayed on the vine beyond its best fresh eating stage. Harvesting late can also allow mature fruit to direct the plant towards seed production, while younger flowers and fruit compete for resources. Use scissors rather than pulling. Cucumber vines can be surprisingly easy to tear, especially when they are trained up a trellis or growing from a small container. Hold the fruit, cut the stem, and lower it into the basket. Do not toss cucumbers beneath heavier vegetables. Even when the skin appears unbroken, pressure and bruising can shorten their useful life. Move cucumbers out of direct heat quickly. They benefit from cooling, but they are also sensitive to temperatures that are excessively cold for long periods. In a typical home, store them where they are cool without pressing them against the coldest back wall of the refrigerator. A breathable bag or loosely closed container can reduce moisture loss without trapping heavy condensation. If you plan to make pickles, the best raw material is firm, freshly harvested fruit, not cucumbers rescued after they have already become soft. Cucumber gives you visible warnings. Okra often gives you less time. During hot weather, okra can grow with remarkable speed, and the pod may become fibrous while it still looks green and healthy. That is why the best test is not color alone and not a universal length. Different varieties produce different pod sizes. A compact pod on one plant may be mature, while a longer pod on another variety may still be tender. Check the pods by touch and by how easily the stem cuts. A tender pod feels firm but not woody. Its tip can often bend or snap more easily than the tip of an older pod, although you should not damage every pod just to test it. When you cut one for the kitchen, the knife should pass through without fighting tough fibers. If a pod has become rigid and difficult to cut, save it for seed only if the plant is healthy and you intentionally want mature seed. Otherwise, remove it so the plant is not continuing to invest energy in a pod you do not plan to eat. Harvest okra regularly while the plant is producing strongly. Wear gloves and long sleeves if the fine hairs irritate your skin. Use scissors because pulling can damage the branch, and avoid squeezing the tender pod. Place okra in a dry container and keep it shaded. Extra moisture can encourage spotting and decay, so do not seal wet pods in a bag. Okra is a crop to use relatively soon, while the pods still have the texture you harvested them for. The important point is not a rigid schedule, it is frequent observation. In peak heat, yesterday's promising pod can become tomorrow's seed pod. Now we come to beans, where the same pod can mean two completely different things depending on what you planted it for. If you are growing snap beans, you usually want the pod while it is tender and before the seeds inside have become large and obvious. If you are growing shell beans or dry beans, the expanding seed is the harvest, so waiting is intentional. Confusing those goals is one reason gardeners sometimes call a bean overripe, when it is actually doing exactly what that variety was grown to do. For snap beans, look for smooth pods with only modest seed development. The pod should feel crisp, and many varieties will break cleanly when bent. Do not rely on the word snap alone, because some modern stringless beans remain flexible even when they are good to eat. Compare several pods from the same plant and learn the stage you prefer. Smaller pods are often especially tender, while slightly larger pods may provide more yield without becoming tough. Use two hands when harvesting. Hold the stem or cluster with one hand and remove the bean with the other, so you do not pull off flowers, growing tips, or an entire section of vine. Pole beans hidden behind leaves are easy to miss, and one mature pod can remain unnoticed until the seeds are prominent. A quick daily or every other day inspection during heavy production is more useful than a fixed harvest date. After picking, keep beans cool and protect them from drying. Do not wash and tightly seal them while water remains on the surface. A breathable bag or container in the refrigerator can help maintain humidity while reducing trapped condensation. If you have more than you can use fresh, blanching and freezing is usually a better plan than leaving a large pile in the refrigerator until the pods become limp. Beans reveal age through the seeds inside. Eggplant reveals it through the surface you can see and feel. A high-quality eggplant normally has glossy skin, strong color for the variety, and flesh that yields slightly under gentle pressure before springing back. When the skin becomes dull, the fruit feels hard, or the seeds inside become more developed, the eating quality may be moving past its peak, even though the fruit is still growing. This is another crop where gardeners are tempted by maximum size. Seed catalogs may describe the potential size of a mature fruit, but heat, container volume, variety, and plant health all change what an individual plant can support. Do not wait for a fruit to reach the largest advertised measurement if the gloss is fading. A smaller fruit harvested at the right stage is often more tender and less bitter than an impressive fruit left too long. Eggplant stems are strong and may have sharp calyx spines. Use pruners, support the fruit, and leave a short stem. Pulling can snap a branch that still carries flowers. Handle the skin carefully, because scratches and bruises become weak points during storage. Keep eggplant out of direct sun after harvest and avoid exposing it to extreme cold for long periods. It prefers cool handling, but it is a warm season fruit that can suffer chilling injury when treated like a hardy winter green. If you plan to cook it soon, room temperature holding for a short period in a cool kitchen may preserve texture better than forgetting it in the coldest refrigerator zone. If you need more time, refrigerate it carefully and use it before the skin softens or develops damaged areas. The exact best method depends on your home temperature, so the practical rule is to protect it from both summer heat and excessive cold. Zucchini, cucumber, okra, snap beans, and eggplant all teach the same larger lesson in different ways. The harvest window often closes before the vegetable reaches its largest possible size. With these crops, the question is not, can it grow more? The question is, will growing more improve what I want to eat? The next 5 crops create the opposite kind of tension. Waiting can deepen color, aroma, sweetness, or flavor. But every additional day can also increase the risk of cracking, pests, storm damage, or a shorter storage life. Tomato, pepper, tomatillo, melon, and compact corn force us to decide not only whether a fruit is mature, but what we plan to do with it after it leaves the plant. Tomatoes are where simple harvest rules usually fall apart. Some gardeners insist that every tomato should remain on the vine until it is fully colored and soft enough to eat. Others harvest the moment the first color appears. Both approaches can be reasonable, depending on the weather, the variety, the risk in the garden, and how soon the fruit will be used. A tomato reaches physiological maturity before it reaches its final eating color. Once a mature fruit begins showing a definite change from its mature green stage, it can continue ripening after harvest. Gardeners often call the early color change point the breaker stage. The fruit may show a blush of pink, red, orange, yellow, or another mature color, depending on the variety. From that point, the tomato does not need direct sunlight to finish ripening. It needs appropriate room temperature, good air circulation, and protection from bruising. Why harvest at that stage instead of waiting for complete vine ripeness? Sometimes the answer is protection. A storm is approaching, and splitting is likely. Birds or squirrels have started sampling every fruit that colors. Hornworms, stink bugs, or other pests are damaging the crop. The plant is struggling through severe heat, or the fruit is exposed to sun scald. In those situations, allowing a mature tomato to finish indoors may save more quality than leaving it outside for a theoretically perfect vine-ripe moment that never arrives. When conditions are stable and the fruit is protected, leaving a tomato on the plant longer can give it more time to develop color and aroma. But do not confuse longer with until it becomes soft and cracked. A tomato that is fully colored and slightly yielding is ready to come inside. The moment you notice splitting, leaking, deep bruising, or insect entry, the storage conversation has changed. Damaged fruit should be separated and used quickly if it is still wholesome, not buried beneath healthy tomatoes. Harvest with the calyx attached when practical, or cut the stem cleanly so you do not pull the vine. For clustered tomatoes, support the truss. Place fruit in a shallow tray or a single layer rather than a deep bucket. One heavy tomato pressing on another can cause bruising that is invisible at first. Indoors, keep tomatoes that are still ripening out of direct sunlight. A sunny windowsill can overheat the skin and soften the fruit unevenly. A counter or shelf with moderate room temperature and air movement is usually better. Check the fruit daily and turn it gently if one side remains against a surface. Refrigeration is where the advice needs nuance. Cold temperatures can reduce aroma and alter texture, especially in tomatoes that have not finished ripening. So do not automatically refrigerate a breaker stage fruit that you want to develop flavor. However, a fully ripe tomato that will spoil before you can eat it may be better refrigerated than wasted. Bring it back toward room temperature before serving, because warmth allows more aroma compounds to reach your nose and often improves the eating experience. The decision is easier when you sort tomatoes by purpose. The ripest, softest fruit becomes tonight's salad, sandwich, or sauce. Firm, fully colored tomatoes are used next. Breaker stage fruit can continue ripening indoors. Green fruit that has not reached mature size may not ripen with the same quality, so do not strip an entire plant early without a weather or season reason. Now, ask yourself a question before picking every tomato. Are you harvesting for the best meal today, for protection from a risk outside, or for a few more days of holding time? The right stage changes with the answer. Pepper looks simpler because many peppers are edible while green, but color still represents a choice. A bell pepper can be harvested when it has reached full size, developed thick walls, and feels firm, even if it is still green. A jalapeno, serrano, shishito, or other hot pepper may also be useful at its green stage. Leaving the fruit longer allows many varieties to change to red, orange, yellow, purple, brown, or another mature color. As they color, flavor, sweetness, heat perception, and aroma can change. Do not assume that every pepper is supposed to turn red. Know the mature color of the variety. Also, do not wait for color if the fruit is showing sun-scald, soft spots, cracking, or pest damage. A healthy green pepper harvested today is more valuable than a damaged red pepper left through another week of stress. The plant also has a role in the decision. A small pepper plant in a container may be carrying more fruit than its roots, and leaf area can support comfortably during extreme heat. Harvesting some full-size green peppers reduces the load and gives the remaining fruit and new flowers a better chance. On a vigorous plant with adequate water and foliage, you may choose to leave several fruits to mature color for maximum sweetness. Use scissors or pruners. Pepper branches are brittle, and twisting a stubborn fruit can break the entire fork of a branch. Cut a short stem, check the shoulders and blossom end for hidden damage, and place the pepper where it will not be crushed. Fresh peppers lose water gradually after harvest. Store them cool, with enough humidity to reduce shriveling, but not so much trapped moisture that decay develops. If a pepper has already been cut, refrigerate it promptly in a clean container. Whole peppers can be sorted by condition. Firm, flawless fruit has more holding time. Thin-walled or slightly damaged fruit belongs in the use-first group. Tomatillo hides its best clue behind a papery husk. Color alone can mislead you because green varieties may stay green. Purple varieties may develop color unevenly, and the outside husk can turn pale before the fruit is truly full. The most useful sign is the relationship between the fruit and the husk. An immature tomatillo has room inside its lantern-like covering. As the fruit develops, it fills the husk, presses against it, and may begin splitting the paper near the bottom. A full, firm fruit inside a dry or drying husk is usually much closer to harvest than a small fruit rattling inside a large empty shell. Fallen fruit can also be mature, but inspect it carefully for cracks, insect damage, decay, or contamination before bringing it to the kitchen. Cut or gently detach tomatillos without crushing the husk. The sticky coating on the fruit is normal. If you are storing the fruit for a short period, keeping the dry husk attached can protect the surface. Do not wash the fruit and return it to storage while it is still wet. Remove the husk and rinse the sticky film under clean running water when you are ready to prepare it. Tomatillos that are fully sized but still firm work well for salsa and cooking. Fruit that becomes yellowish and very soft may develop a sweeter, less bright character, but it may not give the same sharp flavor you expect from a green salsa. This is another example of harvesting for a purpose, rather than waiting for a single universal endpoint. Melons raise the stakes because many do not become significantly sweeter after they are cut from the vine. They may soften and develop aroma, but the sugar that was never produced on the plant cannot simply appear in storage. That is why a melon harvested too early can remain disappointing no matter how carefully it sits on the counter. The first rule is to identify the type. Many cantaloupes and muskmelons develop a slip stage. As they mature, the stem attachment loosens. At full slip, the fruit may separate with gentle pressure and leave a smooth, rounded scar. The background color beneath the netting may shift from green toward tan or golden, and the blossom end may give off a noticeable aroma. A fruit that must be forcefully torn away may not be ready, although variety differences matter. Other melons do not slip from the stem. Honeydew may require attention to skin color, a slight waxy feel, blossom end softness, and the expected mature appearance of the variety. Watermelon requires another set of clues. Gardeners often look for the tendril nearest the fruit to dry, the ground spot to change toward a creamy yellow, and the rind to become duller. No single sign is perfect, especially when heat, irrigation, or disease affects the vine, so combine several clues. The popular thumping test is not worthless, but it is unreliable when used alone. Sound changes with fruit size, rind thickness, and the person doing the tapping. It becomes more useful only after you have compared ripe and unripe fruit from the same variety. A stronger approach is to track the approximate maturity window for the variety and then confirm with external signs. Harvest melons by cutting the stem when the type does not naturally slip. Carry them with both hands and avoid dropping them. A rind can hide internal bruising. Keep whole melons shaded and cool. Once a melon is cut, cover it and refrigerate it promptly. Clean the outside before cutting, so the knife does not carry soil or microorganisms from the rind into the flesh. Here is the midsummer twist that makes all these harvest rules easier to remember. Morning harvest can protect freshness, but the clock cannot create ripeness. A cantaloupe picked at sunrise is still unripe if the stem, aroma, and background color say the plant has not finished. A cucumber picked at noon may be warm, but if it has reached the ideal tender stage, the answer is not to leave it on the vine until tomorrow. The better answer is to pick it, shade it, and cool it appropriately. Now we reach compact corn, the crop that makes time after harvest feel especially important. A short corn variety grown in a container, raised bed, or small plot follows the same maturity signals as a taller field variety. The ears are ready when the silks have turned brown and dry. The husks remain mostly green, and the kernels have filled the cob. To check an ear, peel back only a small section of husk near the tip and press a kernel with a fingernail. Clear, watery liquid suggests the kernels are still immature. A milky liquid suggests the sweet eating stage. Thick, doughy material or kernels that resist the nail indicate that the ear is moving past the tender stage. Fold the husk back into place if the ear needs more time. Do not open many ears unnecessarily because exposed kernels attract insects and dry more quickly. Harvest by holding the ear, bending it downward and twisting, or cut it cleanly if the plant is difficult to handle in a container. Be careful not to tip the pot or pull the stalk from loose soil. Keep the husk on until preparation because it helps protect the kernels and reduce moisture loss. Corn begins changing as soon as it leaves the stalk. The exact rate varies by variety, and modern super sweet types hold sweetness better than older standard sweet corn. But heat still speeds quality loss. That means the most useful habit is to harvest corn close to the time you plan to cook it. If dinner is hours away, cool the ears quickly and refrigerate them rather than leaving a basket in the sun or a hot car. Do not pile warm corn into a sealed, unventilated container. The trapped heat stays around the ears. Spread them or cool them in a way that allows heat to escape before storage. If you have more than you can eat soon, process the surplus while it is still fresh, instead of waiting for the kernels to become starchy and tough. Tomato, pepper, tomatillo, melon, and corn show why ripeness is a decision, not merely a color. Tomato can be harvested at several stages depending on risk and use. Pepper gives you a choice between green maturity and fully colored maturity. Tomatillo asks you to look inside the husk. Melon demands variety-specific clues. Corn rewards you for protecting quality immediately after harvest. Fruit has a skin, husk, or rind that slows moisture loss. The leaves and herbs we are about to place in the basket have almost no such protection. They can look perfect when you cut them and begin wilting before you finish the next row. This is the most fragile part of the harvest, and it starts with the herb that breaks the refrigerator rule many gardeners use for everything green. Basil may look like a leafy green, but it behaves more like a tropical herb. It loves warmth on the plant and can develop dark, damaged areas when exposed to temperatures that are too cold. That is why putting a beautiful bunch directly into the coldest refrigerator zone can create the very problem you were trying to prevent. Harvest basil after the leaves are dry, and while the plant is still relatively cool. Morning is convenient, but if the foliage is wet with dew, wait until the surface moisture has dried. Wet leaves, packed together, bruise easily and encourage decay. Use clean scissors and cut a stem just above a pair of healthy leaves. That cut leaves growth points behind, so the plant can branch and produce more harvestable stems. Avoid stripping random leaves from every part of the plant until only bare stems remain. If you grow basil primarily for leaves, harvest flowering tips before the plant invests heavily in seed. Flowering does not make basil poisonous, and the flowers are edible, but older flowering stems often become tougher and the flavor can change. Frequent tip harvests help maintain a bushier plant. Handle the leaves gently. Basil bruises where fingers squeeze it, and those bruises often turn dark later. For a short holding period, treat a freshly cut bunch like cut flowers. Trim the stems, place them in a clean jar with a modest amount of water, and keep the leaves above the waterline. Set the jar away from direct sun and strong heat. Loosely covering the top can reduce moisture loss in a dry room, but do not trap condensation against the leaves. Change the water when it becomes cloudy. A very hot kitchen may shorten this method's useful period, while a mild room may work well. The point is not that basil must never be refrigerated under any circumstance. The point is that it should not be treated exactly like kale. If refrigeration is necessary, protect the leaves from the coldest spots, keep them dry, and use them quickly. For a large surplus, turn basil into pesto, herb paste, or another freezer-friendly preparation instead of waiting for a fresh bunch to collapse. Basil was the herb promised at the beginning, but it is not the only leaf that needs thoughtful handling. Malabar spinach is another warm season crop that thrives when ordinary spinach struggles. Its thick, slightly succulent leaves hold moisture better than tender lettuce, yet the young shoots still lose quality when crushed or left in heat. Harvest the soft, growing tips and young leaves for the most tender texture. Older leaves remain edible, especially in cooked dishes, but they can be thicker and more mucilaginous. Use scissors to cut a section of vine above a node. This encourages branching and gives the plant a chance to produce new tips rather than leaving ragged damage. Do not compress Malabar spinach under hard vegetables. The leaves may look sturdy, but bruising creates dark, wet areas. Place the shoots near the top of the basket and move them into shade. Once indoors, remove damaged leaves, keep the healthy leaves cool, and protect them from drying with an appropriate bag or container. Avoid sealing leaves while they are visibly wet. Because this is a crop valued for fresh, tender growth, plan to use it relatively early in the harvest sequence. Sweet potato leaves offer 2 harvests from one plant: edible greens during the growing season and roots later, if the variety and conditions are suitable. That creates a balance. You can harvest young vine tips, but removing too much foliage repeatedly can reduce the leaf area that supports root development. Choose healthy, tender tips from several vines rather than cutting one plant back severely. Leave enough foliage to continue photosynthesis and protect the soil surface. Avoid leaves that are yellow, heavily damaged, or close to contaminated soil. Cut cleanly instead of tearing long sections from the container. The young tips and leaves are treated as cooking greens. Keep them shaded, cool them promptly, and prevent moisture loss. If you have more, then you can use fresh. Blanching and freezing can be more practical than filling the refrigerator with a large pile that will be forgotten. The harvest goal matters here. If you are growing mainly for greens, you can cut more frequently. If you want a strong root harvest later, take moderate amounts and allow recovery between cuts. Swiss chard is generous because you do not need to remove the whole plant. Start with the outer leaves and keep the central growing point intact. A plant with several healthy leaves can continue producing from the middle through much of the season, especially when it receives consistent moisture and some relief from extreme afternoon heat. Cut each outer stalk near the base without slicing into the crown. Young leaves are tender enough for quick cooking or fresh use, while larger leaves and thicker stems are often better separated and cooked according to their different textures. Do not reject a large leaf simply because it is not baby-sized. Judge it for the meal you intend to make. Chard has broad surfaces that lose moisture quickly. Harvest when the plant is hydrated. Place the leaves loosely in the basket and cool them soon after cutting. If the leaves are dusty, wait to wash until close to use, or wash carefully and dry them thoroughly before storage. A damp towel or a container that maintains humidity without standing water can help keep leaves from becoming limp. When a charred leaf is already wilting in the garden during midday heat, determine whether the plant is temporarily losing water faster than the roots can replace it. A leaf that recovers in the evening may still be usable when harvested cool the next morning. A leaf that remains yellow, torn, diseased, or slimy belongs in compost or disposal, not in the storage container. Kale follows a similar cut and come again pattern. Remove the lower outer leaves first and allow the center to continue producing. A healthy plant should keep a crown of active leaves. Do not strip it down to a bare stalk during severe heat, because the plant still needs foliage to power new growth and shade its own stem. Baby kale and mature kale are different products. Baby leaves are tender and often eaten fresh. Mature leaves can have stronger flavor and a firmer midrib, making them well suited to cooking, massaging for salad, or removing the stem before use. Harvesting every leaf at the same tiny stage gives tenderness, while allowing some to grow provides more volume. Your kitchen plan determines the right size. Kale is more comfortable in cold storage than basil, but it still loses water. Refrigerate it in a way that maintains humidity without sealing pools of water against the leaves. Remove yellowing or damaged material before storage, because one deteriorating leaf can wet and soil the leaves around it. If the harvest is large, wash, prepare, blanch, and freeze. Apportion while it is still in good condition rather than after it has begun to wilt. Collard greens also reward selective harvest. Choose healthy, lower or outer leaves and preserve the central cluster. Young leaves are usually more tender, while mature leaves have more substance for long cooking. In hot weather, flavor may become stronger and texture firmer than it is after cool conditions arrive. That does not make summer collards useless, but it changes how you prepare them. Cut the leaf stem cleanly and keep the harvested leaves away from the hot soil or side of a dark container. Collards are large, so gardeners sometimes stack them tightly in a deep bucket. The lower leaves then carry the weight and heat of the entire harvest. Use a wide basket or make several trips instead. Cool the leaves, maintain humidity, and remove damaged sections before storage. Frequent outer leaf harvests can keep a small number of container plants productive, but do not take more than the plant can replace. A heat-stressed plant with only a few functional leaves needs recovery, water, and shade more than it needs another harvest. The final category is culinary herbs, and this is where one storage rule becomes especially dangerous. Herbs have different leaf textures, stems, oils, and tolerances. Cilantro, parsley, dill, and mint are soft herbs. Rosemary, thyme, oregano, and sage are woody or semi-woody herbs. They do not all belong in the same bag. Soft herbs lose water rapidly. Harvest them when they are cool, use sharp scissors, and keep the stems from being crushed. Cilantro that is beginning to bolt can still be harvested, but the leaves become smaller, and the flavor may change as the plant sends energy into flowers and seed. Parsley can be cut from the outside, leaving the center. Mint should be cut above a node, just like basil, to encourage branching. Dill leaves are best harvested before the plant becomes fully devoted to seed, although the flowers and seeds can be separate useful harvests. Many soft herbs can be held with their cut stem ends in clean water, either at room temperature or under refrigeration depending on the herb and the temperature in the room. Leaves should remain above the water. Any plastic covering should be loose enough to avoid trapping excessive condensation. Inspect the jar, refresh the water, and remove stems that become slimy. Woody herbs are generally more tolerant of drying. Rosemary and thyme can be wrapped loosely or placed in a breathable container in the refrigerator, and they also dry well for long-term use. Oregano often develops excellent flavor when dried. Sage leaves can be dried or frozen depending on how you plan to cook with them. The key is to start with healthy, clean material and allow surface moisture to disappear before bundling herbs for drying. A thick, wet bundle can mold instead of drying. Do not harvest herbs immediately after applying anything you would not want on the food, and follow the label interval for any legal garden product. Inspect the undersides of leaves for insects, webbing, eggs, or disease. Harvesting is the moment to separate healthy food from material that should not enter the kitchen. By now, the basket contains fruit protected by skins and husks, tender pods that were harvested before maturity, and leaves that began losing moisture the second they were cut. The temptation is to carry everything inside and put the entire basket on the counter while you decide what to cook. That is exactly when a carefully timed harvest can become disorganized. The next 5 minutes are not about memorizing 17 separate storage rules. They are about sorting the harvest into 4 practical groups. One group must be used first. One needs prompt refrigeration. One can continue ripening or hold briefly at room temperature. And one should be preserved or shared before abundance turns into waste. Bring the basket into a clean, shaded work area and resist the urge to treat abundance as one undivided pile. Start by removing anything that is leaking, crushed, split, slimy, heavily insect damaged, or contaminated. A damaged item does not automatically mean the whole harvest is unsafe, but it should not remain pressed against healthy food. Separate it, inspect it, and decide whether it can be trimmed and cooked immediately or should be discarded. Now make 4 groups. The first group is use first. It contains produce with the shortest remaining window of good quality: fully ripe tomatoes, ripe melon, tender herbs, corn, soft greens, and any cucumber, zucchini, okra, bean, or eggplant close to becoming overmature. Slightly bruised, but wholesome produce belongs here too. Let this group influence the next meal. If corn is in it, cook the corn tonight. If basil and ripe tomatoes are in it, make sauce, salad, sandwiches, or pesto. If chard leaves are large and beginning to soften, cook them before reaching for vegetables that can wait. The most fragile food should determine tonight's menu. That single habit prevents more waste than trying to extend every crop for the maximum theoretical number of days. The second group is refrigerate promptly. It includes snap beans, chard, kale, collards, Malabar spinach, sweet potato leaves, and many zucchini, cucumbers, peppers, and eggplants not needed immediately. Refrigeration should slow water loss without creating a wet, airless environment. Do not place field-warm produce in one deep, tightly sealed mass. Spread it briefly in a clean, cool place so heat can escape. Then use the refrigerator's produce drawer or another suitable area. Keep leaves protected from dry, circulating air with a bag, towel, or container, but avoid standing water. Cucumbers and eggplants should not be pressed against the coldest surfaces for long periods. Peppers and zucchini need protection from shriveling, yet visible condensation should be reduced. Labeling is useful when the harvest is large. A small note with the harvest date helps you use older produce first, but your senses still matter more than the label. Check for softness, off odors, leaking, discoloration, or mold. Storage slows change. It does not stop it. The third group is ripen or hold at room temperature. Breaker stage tomatoes belong here. Arrange them in a single layer away from direct sun. Check them daily and move each fruit into the use first group when it becomes fully colored and ready. Some peppers can also remain at room temperature briefly if you are allowing color to develop, but inspect them because warm conditions also accelerate shriveling and decay. Basil in a jar may stand in this group when the room is not excessively hot. Keep the cut stems in clean water and the leaves dry. Do not place the jar in a sunny window. If your kitchen becomes very warm during the day, use the basil quickly or choose a cooler, protected location. Room temperature holding is an active stage. Check produce daily, maintain air circulation, and remove damaged fruit. A paper bag can speed softening, but it can also hide mold and trapped moisture, so use it only with a clear reason. The fourth group is preserve or share. This group prevents the refrigerator from becoming a waiting room for food that no household can realistically eat fresh. Choose preservation while the produce is still at high quality. Do not wait until vegetables are soft and then expect freezing, pickling, or drying to restore what has been lost. Tomatoes can become sauce or freezer portions. Cucumbers, okra, beans, and peppers can be pickled with a tested recipe. Beans, corn, peppers, and many greens can be prepared for freezing. Basil can become pesto, while rosemary, thyme, oregano, and sage can be dried or frozen. Use tested preservation instructions from a reliable extension service or food safety source, especially for canning and shelf-stable products. Acidity, jar processing, salt, and time are safety controls, not details to improvise. A recipe that tastes good is not automatically a safe canning recipe. Sharing is another form of preservation because it preserves the value of the harvest. Offer clean, sound produce to neighbors, friends, or a local organization that accepts garden donations. Ask about their requirements before delivering. Do not donate food that you would not feel comfortable serving at your own table. Wash your hands, tools, baskets, and work surfaces. Rinse produce under clean running water before eating or cutting, and do not use soap, bleach, or detergent on fruits and vegetables. Rub firm produce gently. Rinse leafy greens carefully, and dry anything that will be stored. Melons deserve special attention because the knife passes through the rind into the flesh. Rinse and scrub the outside under running water before cutting, even when you do not eat the rind. Refrigerate cut melon promptly in a clean covered container. The same basic principle applies to any fruit or vegetable that has been cut. Once protective skin is broken, safe holding becomes more important. If wildlife waste, floodwater, a leaking compost tip, or another contamination concern has contacted edible portions, simple rinsing may not make the crop safe. When there is a serious contamination risk, discard the affected food rather than trying to save every item. Reducing waste matters, but it never matters more than safety. The four groups can now be summarized in one sentence. Use first, refrigerate, ripen at room temperature, or preserve and share. Those decisions turn a mixed basket into an organized supply of food. Look at how each crop fits. Use corn first or cool it quickly. Use tender okra, herbs, and fully ripe fruit early. Refrigerate beans and most leafy greens promptly. Keep ripening tomatoes at room temperature. Protect basil from excessive cold. Preserve surplus peppers, tomatoes, beans, cucumbers, corn, and herbs while their quality is still high. And remember that storage cannot correct a harvest mistake. Refrigeration cannot make an old okra pod tender. A countertop cannot add the vine-developed sweetness missing from a prematurely cut melon. A jar of water cannot reverse severe basil bruising. Storage is protection, not repair. Connect the garden to the kitchen before you harvest. Ask what you will cook, how much cold space is available, whether you can preserve a surplus, and who could use the rest. Harvesting without a plan creates a beautiful basket and a stressful evening. Harvesting with a plan creates meals. A successful harvest is not measured only by how much food leaves the garden. It is measured by how much reaches the table with the flavor, texture, and freshness that made growing it worthwhile. Remember the 3 decisions that protected this basket. Harvest for the right stage, not simply the largest size. Use the cooler part of the day to protect quality, but never let the clock overrule true ripeness. And send each crop to the place that suits it, instead of sending everything automatically to the refrigerator. Tender fruiting vegetables reward attention before they become over-mature. Ripening fruits require a clear purpose and reliable maturity clues. Leaves and herbs need protection from moisture loss, bruising, and the wrong temperature. When the basket enters the kitchen, sort it immediately. Use first, refrigerate, ripen at room temperature, or preserve and share. The next time you enter the garden, do not ask only, "What can I pick?" Ask, "What is at its best today, and what will I do with it when it comes inside?" That question protects the reward of every seed you planted, every container you watered, and every hot summer day you spent helping the garden grow.